Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Thriving Relationship Show. I am your host, Christine Eartheart, and founder of the Center for Thriving Relationships. And I am so grateful and excited to have you here and to get to support you in experiencing more love, connection, and understanding in your relationships. And if you are someone who has been intrigued about the differences between men and women, you are in the right place, because today's guest is the most prolific writer and speaker when it comes to helping men understand women better and helping women better understand men. And there's a good chance you are probably familiar with his name or his work because his books have sold over 50 million copies. So I am thrilled and honored to get to introduce you all to Dr. John Gray. So Dr. John Gray is the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which USA Today listed as one of the top 10 most influential books of the last quarter century. In hardcover, it was the #1 best-selling book of the 1990s. Dr. Gray's books are translated into approximately 45 languages in more than 100 countries, and it continues to be a bestseller. He's written over 20 books. His most recent book is Beyond Mars and Venus: Relationship Skills for Our Complex Modern World. John helps men and women better understand and respect their differences in both personal and professional relationships. His approach combines specific communication techniques with healthy nutritional choices that create the brain and body chemistry for lasting health, happiness, and romance. He has appeared so many places, repeatedly on Oprah, as well as the Dr. Oz Show, Today, CBS, This Morning, Good Morning America, many others. He's been profiled in Time, Forbes, USA Today, and People. And he was also the subject of a 3-hour special hosted by Barbara Walters. He now lives in Northern California, where for 34 years, he happily shared his life with his beautiful wife, Bonnie, until her passing in 2018. They have 3 grown daughters and 4 grandchildren, and he is an avid follower of his own health and relationship advice. So, John, it is such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much and welcome.
Christine, it's a real pleasure to talk to you, and I love talking about thriving relationships.
So tell us more about why relationships. So you've devoted your life and now looking at it very holistically, which we'll get into kind of the health side of how our physiology impacts relationships. So why did you choose relationships? Why did you first get into it, and why is it relationships that have become just such a focus in your life?
Well, I grew up in a family, it was a loving family, but it was 5 older brothers, or 4 older brothers, a little brother, a lot of guys. So I understood guys. And then I became a monk. I'm very spiritual. I love to meditate. I love to pray. I love to be selfless and all that. And so I've run guys my whole life. And so then it was given to me to no longer be a monk and meditate all the time. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just got on a plane, flew out to California, and said, what's going to happen? We'll see. Well, long story short, I started no longer being a celibate monk, pure celibate. Started having sex. I went, wow, this is great. But before, I didn't know what I was doing. So I interviewed women and about what they like. And I went, how many guys know this stuff? Because not every woman said the same thing. And there was a common theme. And since I was always a natural teacher, I was teaching meditation and spirituality for 10 years. That's a gift for me. I thought, okay, I'll teach what I need to learn. And so I got men and women together in classes. I said, look, I've been a monk. I needed to learn. And having people talk openly about sex, what they like, what are their best experiences, what are their not best experiences, was a lot of new information for me and for everybody else. So that was the beginning of my teaching career about relationships. I learned a lot about great sex, but to sustain great sex, you have to have good communication outside the bedroom. And got married to my wife, Bonnie, and had the same trials and tribulations I talk about in all my books. And together we solved these problems. It was quite wonderful. And so it was easy to share what we had learned with other people, as opposed to what I would learn when I went to university. Okay, they don't teach the right skills. They're what they were doing, and it's partly why my work has been so many people have read my books and they go, wow, this is really helping. This is so good. Because what often therapists are taught are not the ideas that work. And I don't judge them. I just have to say it doesn't work because most people who write relationship books, not all, but most are therapists. They help people with relationships, which I did as well. But 90% of the people who come to counseling are women. So naturally, your mindset is, okay, to make relationships better, we should look at what the people want, and that's how you make good relationships. But there wasn't like a equal opportunity for what do men need and what's missing for men and what's important. And what you find is men have issues too that women don't understand, just like women have issues that men don't understand. So what I came around is a message that was different from what was being taught. And therefore, because it works, it was very popular. And I still, to this day, I counsel people. And it's really fun when somebody says, this has happened my whole career as a counselor. I've learned more in one session than 3, 5, 10 years of therapy. Just because if you lean somebody in the wrong direction, it's never going to really work. As opposed to lean this way a little bit, it will work better. And I won't say that about all therapists, just the ones I have people coming to me and telling me what I learned that was wrong. It's very affirming and validating. And that's often why people said to me, how could I so confidently come out and back in my 30s with these ideas? Because everybody who came to me said the same thing. Our relationship is so much better in 1 or 2 sessions, and we've been going to therapy for years. So I would go, well, what did you learn in therapy? And so that gave me more awareness of what people are doing that's not working, so I could provide something that is working. And to summarize that, Christine, it's just one idea is, as a therapist or a coach, find out what people are doing. And now you know what not to do. If they're not getting the results in their life, we've got to break the pattern.
Yes, so powerful. I love your story of how you got into it because it's based on relationships. Like you went to go ask questions and deeply listen. So that's so beautiful that it was relationally based. And then in your own relationship, it's always right the best living laboratory for how we can apply these things. And what a testament, just clearly the popularity of your work speaks to how much people are longing for more insights and your kind of unique take on things. So thank you so much for everything that you have contributed to the world. And so communication is big. In our private practice here, when people fill out their intake forms, kind of why are you reaching out for support? So often it's around communication or a breakdown in communication. So you have learned so much about this. You are well versed. And so I'm curious, it's probably tied to these things that you found that weren't working elsewhere, maybe when they've come into your office. Where have you found have been the issues? Like what stands in the way of people being able to communicate, and what have you found really works best?
Well, what I found that works best, and it's good always to start from the theme of communication. Even the subtitle of my famous book, Men Are From Mars, How to Improve Communication and Get What You Want. There's something about talking about, well, we're having difficulties communicating. There's no shame in me. There's no shame in my partner. I'm not trying to blame them. I'm not feeling like a victim. It's just needing to improve communication. So that's a good starting point because nobody feels so defensive.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to pause for a moment here and pop on. So in this episode, all the information to come, some of you, it is going to be an amazing match. You are going to have so many insights, ahas, breakthroughs, takeaways, so much goodness. You are going to love sharing it with your partner. And I'm so excited for you. For others of you, it might be less resonant. It's going to be less of a match. So Dr. John, his area that he's really focused on, devoted his life to, is in the realm of heterosexual relationships. And I just want to let you all know, here at the Thriving Relationship Show, we are in full support of relationships in all of their forms. It is so important to me, to us, that this is a welcoming, inclusive place where everyone feels safe to be exactly who you are. So if what he shares feels like it's putting you in a box that you don't want to be in or just doesn't match for you, no problem. Take on and carry with you whatever is of service and support, and then let go of the rest. So thank you all so much. And now on to the episode. Enjoy.
The second thing is the reason we have communication problems is our challenges today are different. They're very, very different. And it's a modern world. It's very nuanced. It's women have become more masculine. They're more independent. The traditional culture doesn't support us now. See, traditional culture sort of told women, okay, your job is this. And if you do that, you're a good wife. And men, you do your job and you're this, you're a good husband. So there didn't need to have so much communication. But once everything changes, when a woman is more independent, her needs become different. She needs more help around the house. She needs to ask for more romance. She needs romance. Romance is one of the most powerful things to counteract her becoming more masculine. See, when women are working for money, it produces male hormones. So you need romance to produce more female hormones. You need better communication to produce more estrogen for women and more testosterone for men. These are the different hormones we need for well-being and to keep our hearts open. So what happens is that as we have changed the environment of relationships where women, both men and women, are working most often and then coming home and trying to recover from work, as I saw on The View one time where they were interviewing a woman who gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get onto The View, a big popular talk show. And they're saying, they're talking about relationships. And she said, oh, I have the best relationship ever. And then they're all like, what is it? Tell us about it. And she said, oh, my husband's the perfect wife. He takes care of the kids. He cooks, he cleans, he does all these things. I'm just so lucky because she can make more money. So he takes on those other roles. That's a logical thing. Except staying home with the children doesn't produce a lot of male hormones. And for her, working all the time doesn't produce a lot of female hormones. But still, she's very happy in the relationship because it's all working out. It's like 5 years into the relationship. Well, then the women on The View, they all said, and what's your sex life like? And she laughs and she's always not having sex after the last child. Are you kidding? So she made a deal. You know, I can have my popularity. I can have my children, my family life. I have to let go of the whole idea of having a sex life. So I believe that sex is a highly important aspect of sustaining a relationship. When I say sex life, I mean making love. Sex can be just sex, and then it's a drain of life force energy. But when it's with love and when it's done purposefully in order to make more love, what happens is you're renewing the love you felt in the beginning and over time growing in trust and acceptance and appreciation, because that's the gift God gave us, which is when you have sex with someone you love, sex is so pleasurable that if you use the feeling of pleasure, it's easy to feel happy when you're feeling pleasure, to take the ability to feel and then direct that to how much I love you and to express that love and to communicate that love in the bedroom. And most people don't do that. Most men have never been trained to do that. I mean, they're like really quiet, a lot of guys, you know, and she can't say anything, or he goes, what, you know, it's, so you can discuss this before, you know, as an issue in your relationship. You can say, oh, I read this book. I learned from somebody. Actually, we can try this out. For a woman to be vulnerable and say things during sex like, do you love me? Now, normally, and then he says, yes, I love you so much. And she says, are you happy you married me? Of course, this is the greatest decision I ever made, was to marry you. You're the only one for me. I love you so much. I got this idea because one time my wife said to me in a previous relationship she had, and I learned the lesson. And she said, my partner before, when I was at a party, when we come home, he'd always say, you know, honey, I looked around and you're the most beautiful woman there. It's just a little, you know, these are like sweet things. Some people might think are very corny things. If you're just practical, and romance isn't practical, but if you're just practical and your wife says to you, well, do you love me? A man's always going to say, of course I love you. I married you. As opposed to, yes, I love you so much. And then she says, how much? And he says, so much. And then if you want to be a little more poetic, you just say, forever and ever. I want to be married to you in our next life. Whatever. You know, this is play it up. And what happens, it's not just a one-sided thing, though. And it's not her saying how much she loves him. It's her being vulnerable, which is, do you love me? How much do you love me? Am I the one for you? Are you happy you married me? Oh, and then she can respond, of course, and I love you too. But there's a place of female hormones get produced when you're feeling vulnerable. Now, the female hormone, estrogen, in order to experience romantic feelings, it has to double. For women to climax, for example, it has to double. And when it starts rising higher, then that increases her desire for physical intimacy. Whereas men can easily get to physical intimacy because desire for physical intimacy is the hormone testosterone. Now, for women, when estrogen goes high, then testosterone can naturally rise. So she may not be in the mood, but if you take time to build her estrogen, which is romance, affection, and communication, when women feel heard, safe to express what's inside, huge amounts of estrogen gets produced, and then it goes up, nearly doubles, and then suddenly her desire for sex dramatically increases. Whereas for men, they lead with the desire for sex. I want pleasure. I want to enjoy. I'm missing it. Then their estrogen begins to rise, and then they can feel more love. So sex can be a doorway for men to feel the love. It's not that husbands don't love their wives. It's that they can't fully feel the love which is there. And that's what really gives him the motivating power to stay attracted to her, to have energy for the relationship. Without making love, it's hard for him to keep that motivation, and it's hard for her to be happy with him. One of my classes at my website is, I think it's how to bring out the best in your partner. And what happens in our relationships is we start out, men are so motivated. See, they want to please you. They want to do things for you. And a woman goes, oh my gosh, I don't have to ask for anything. He's so motivated. He's so interested. And she imagines that that's going to last. And men on the other side, they take her to a movie, they take her out to dinner and whatever. She seems so happy. You know, you call her up and she's so happy. So men think, oh, she's so easy to please. She's always happy. Well, that's because in the newness of a relationship, brain chemicals get produced. A lot of dopamine gets produced, serotonin gets produced. And these are like brain chemicals that naturally get produced in a situation where you feel safe, but there's newness. And when the newness goes away, you don't get the free hormones. That's where you're dependent upon good communication. Your communication. And what does that mean, good communication? You asked me that. I'll elaborate a little bit more on that. It looks like this. My wife could be bothered about something at work or in our relationship, and I'll say, help me understand that better and tell me more. And that's awful. Well, let's see if we can do something about that. What would you like? See, it's not me trying to fix her in any way or me trying to change her in any way, but hearing her whole point of view. Now, I may not agree with everything. You can't always agree with your partner, but I don't need to get upset about her having a different point of view. I don't have to try to control her with my point of view. I can then communicate my side of it after she feels fully heard. So who gets to be heard first? The woman. This is a simple idea. Now, if you don't understand that, or why you need to understand that, that's again, we have to get men and women are different. For women to get over to their logical problem-solving place without stress, they first need to be heard in a non-logical way. Just tell me more. Help me understand it. Let me try to be in your step, walk in the world in your shoes. She gets heard first. He needs to feel empathy and compassion for her, whatever she's talking about. Then she's capable of hearing what he has to say from a very detached but logical, caring point of view. That's just hormonal balance. Women, when they push their emotions away, they're suppressing their femininity. To go on to another point, I never do a session on just listening to women talk. Okay, I help her first of all go from surface talking to what her emotions are, to feeling inside what her emotions are. Then I help her get in touch with what she wants. And then, at least for 20 minutes, we need to strategize on how to create what you want, how you need to change you, not change your partner. Because if you want differences, you have to look at how do I have to communicate differently? How do I have to behave differently? How do I have to think differently? How do I have to interpret the world differently? Otherwise, I'll just keep repeating the same thing. But with men, I would always start out with strategies. Okay, let's analyze the situation. Because whenever you analyze, you detach, you look at it from a distance, you take responsibility for your side of it. All of that is testosterone producing. Then, if he still has some upset, I would listen to his feelings about things. But it's fruitless to treat men and women the same. So kind of like, what do I do in dealing with my couples that come in or whatever, is I help them to understand how men and women are different. And they then can figure out many solutions. I can help along the way. But the problem here is that people don't realize how different we are. And particularly in today's modern climate, where people are very confused about masculinity and femininity. And I have a lot of compassion for that, because the culture is telling women to go over to their male side. And when you're on your male side, you could read Men Are From Mars and you'd say, hey, I feel like I'm from Mars and my husband's from Venus. Well, that's always going to happen. So what are some of the symptoms of when a man goes onto his female side? He becomes less motivated. What are symptoms when a woman's more on her male side? She's less happy. This is, I have to, her brain is going, the male side of us wants to solve problems. So what she's in this mode of, I have this problem to solve, I have this problem to solve, I have this problem to solve, and I can't relax, I can't enjoy. It was like shocking to me 40 years ago when I started this, and I'd hear women say, I have no time for me. I always have time for me. And ironically, it's that attitude that can make men really selfless. If we look at the nobility of masculinity, it's pure selflessness. And if we look at the beauty and the love of femininity, the power of love, it's being aware, what do I need, and creating situations where I can get what I need. So then you can feel love and freely give love. So women always give love, but if they don't know exactly what they're needing and how to ask for that or bring that into their life, it's hard to love. Love is a feeling. And we can go to the classic thing is, what is love? So many books are written about love as a behavior. And there is such a thing as a loving behavior, but it's not what love is. Love is a feeling. It's a beautiful, beautiful feeling of oneness and connection and safety and trusting and appreciation and admiration and devotion. All those are qualities of feeling. And that yet there's books written that are saying love is not a feeling, it's a behavior. And I said, no, there are loving behaviors. There's correct behaviors. There's productive behaviors. There's caring behaviors. But love is this ecstatic feeling. And it's through being totally naked mentally, emotionally, and physically and spiritually. The spirit can just come into your body, and that's called ecstasy. And that is in these special moments where we create the safety, where a woman feels relaxed enough where she can sort of unpeel and open up. And a man has to be skilled in giving her repeated experiences that in his presence, she is not just safe, but that's most important. When a woman feels safe to express herself, to reveal what's inside. If a woman is having sex, getting naked, but without revealing in her heart, this is only going to cause her to crash and him to crash later. It doesn't bring you higher and higher. It's two open minds, two open hearts, and then two open bodies coming together for the purpose of making love in service to each other. But how does a woman serve a man in sex? Another question comes up. This is a paradox. You serve a man in sex by allowing him to provide you more fulfillment. Just to take that in. Women don't get this. You can go on a date with a man, and sometimes women feel like an obligation. We should split the bill. Otherwise, I feel obligated to give you more or something. As opposed to realizing that if you allow him to pay the bill, you're actually giving him a gift. That the deal is done. You don't owe him anything. What men are hungry for is the experience of providing happiness to a woman, period. And that's a gift to him. In a sense, you could look at, well, that's just being selfish. I say, well, ironically, being selfish is a gift to him. If your selfishness results in you feeling happy, if your selfishness is saying, I want this and what you give is not enough, well, that's not a gift to him. See, you don't feel loving when you're saying that's not enough. Now, you can feel loving and ask for more. Another paradox. See, life is filled with these paradoxes of, I wrote a whole book on that one, which is called How to Get What You Want and Want What You Have. If you want what you have, people go, well, then I'm content, so I don't want more. So you got a lot of content people who have nothing, but at least they're content, but they're not excited and passionate about life. You have a lot of people who are really highly motivated. They got plans, they're going places, but they're never happy. They're always wanting more, never appreciating what they have. What I see is through relationships, loving relationships, that we anchor into our ability to be in the moment, appreciating what we have, and allowing ourselves to also feel the desire for more. There's no problem with wanting more. And that's a whole nother teaching point, which is often women are taught you shouldn't want more in a relationship. Men get upset with women. Why do you always want more? Always want more? I say, well, don't you want more success? Don't you want more money? Don't you want in your male world? Don't you want more? Of course we want more. And for women, wanting more is very natural, but it sounds selfish, and it is selfish if she's not also appreciating what she's getting. That's the whole secret of life. Imagine if you could be fulfilled with what you have and then want more. You have the passion to create, but you also have the love to give you a foundation of fulfillment inside. And what I see is the grounding of that is through relationship. When you love someone so much, but how do you keep connecting to that love? Is that you have to be aware of what your needs are. I remember when I was homeless, after being a monk for 9 years, then I had no occupation. So I was homeless when I came out into the world. I went, what's this? I figured God would take care of me. Well, God did take care of me. It took a while. You don't get everything you want right away. So you have to be patient, you have to be trusting, and you have to take action. You always have to be responsible. There's an old saying, if you take one step forward, God takes 9 steps towards you. And we can apply that right into our relationships, because we get in these stalemates. Well, I'm not going to open up unless he opens up, or he has to apologize and then I'll apologize. I'm not going to let go of this until my partner changes. See, if we could just turn this around and realize if I can open my heart without my partner changing, that creates the space for my partner to change. But if I'm saying I'm not going to open my heart until you change, then they're over there feeling the same thing. Somebody has got to open up, and that's not easy. We have to teach people how to do that.
How to do that. So, John, so much. I'm just imagining those of you tuning in are like, if your partner's not with you right now, you're probably so excited for them to listen to this and watch along, because I just want to highlight, there are several things that you said, but I mean, really for all of us in relationships, it's so easy, right, to assume that somebody else needs the very same thing that we need, or when someone's showing up in a certain way, to kind of interpret how they're showing up as what it would mean if we showed up in that way. And that just isn't the
right.
Yeah, so important. So I hear physical intimacy, really, really important. And also this kind of leaning in. If your partner has a longing for more love, particularly women, really across the board, I imagine if just kind of a longing for more love, we just want to lean in and get willing for our partners to feel so loved and adored and cherished, and taking responsibility, how important that is. So all this is so good. So I'm wondering just kind of where you were going about, so if someone is feeling like, where do people sort of begin? So they feel maybe they're at this stalemate, like, well, we would be happier if you would just change in this way, whatever it might be. So if a couple is in a power struggle or a stalemate, whatever you want to call it, what do you think are some like the best first steps just to start shifting them in the right direction? Because I love what you're saying about, we want to be happy with where we are and be hungry for more, so we can keep expanding into what's really possible. Which is all about thriving relationships. So yeah, so what do you think are some of the first little steps people can take in that direction?
Well, if it's a man, I give him I tell him so what happened, what didn't happen, what do you think should happen? They have to verbalize objectively what happened without any judgments. Like, well, she was awful, she said that. No, what actually did she say? What actually did she not say? What did you want her to say? What was her need? How could she have communicated that need to you in a different way? You see, you have a conversation with a man about what's going on, so he becomes objective. Objectivity is a male hormone. It produces objectivity. I'm not going to do that with a woman so much. I want her to become more subjective. See, go inside herself. I want him to analyze the situation out here. And then I say, and then what did you do about that? And I say, well, did that work? What do you think would work? And then he's like, I don't know what worked. Well, let's try to understand the situation better. So it's more of an exploration using logic, observation skills, and interpretation, and recognizing that, and pointing out to a man where he's misinterpreting his partner. That's a very, very key thing, objectivity. And that's only one approach, but that's very, very important. That's why Men Are From Mars has helped so many men. They often come up to me and they say, yeah, I just realized from your book, I'm always interrupting her with solutions. I need to just ask more questions. And I go, yeah. And for some couples, that creates a huge change.
Huge breakthrough.
They have more issues going on, but not everybody does. There's a lot of people who just, when a woman realizes, he's pulling away, because that's what men need to do in order to cope with their stress rather than talk about it. And she, really? You mean he's not like mad at me just because they want to talk to me? I said, no, he just needs to forget everything. So you have to realize men just have to forget temporarily. Women have to remember temporarily. It's all temporary. If she could just bring up, I've had women talk about to me, they'll just say, he did it. I just don't want to be in this relationship. I'm done with it. He doesn't love me, doesn't care about me. Then I keep going further. Okay, what are you upset about? Tell me what you're sad about. I really didn't want it to be this way. And what are you afraid of? I'm afraid he's never going to change. I'll never get what I want. I'm afraid something's wrong with me. And I said, oh, okay, let's go there. Starting to feel a little bit of responsibility in there. And then I'll get her in touch with what is it she really wants. And then imagine having what you really want. How would that make you feel? And then I feel relaxed, I feel at ease, I feel comfortable, I feel loving. And I say, now tell me some of the good qualities of your partner. Well, he is this and he is this. See, what happened is her stress level went down, and that allows her to remember the good things in the relationship. When you're in a state of fight or flight, and when a woman is stressed, in that state of fight or flight, her brain goes into a hyper bias towards remembering negative things. And women have the capacity to accept negativity by balancing it with all the positive things. But when you're in a stress state, you have no control over this. Your brain will go into a bias that only sees the negative. A playful way of understanding this, I use with my clients in my talks, is, and the actual factual part of it is this. The hippocampus in a woman is almost, in most cases, is twice as big as a man's. Hippocampus has to do remembering things. How many women get so frustrated when they go, why didn't he remember? Why doesn't he remember? He doesn't love. Well, women, when they love someone, they remember all the details, good or bad. But when men love you, it doesn't mean they're going to remember what they should be remembering. Part of that is a man who can actually cope with stress really well. He actually, when there's things are bothering you, see, we want to solve problems. That's the male side wants to solve problems. So we've evolved so that if we can't solve a problem, we have the ability to temporarily forget the problem until I can do something about it. So see how practical that is. See, I've got all these problems. I've got taxes, got to do this, but I can't do it. I got to rest. So you can't be working all the time. So my brain has the capacity, if I awaken that capacity, which is to say, I'm going to temporarily forget that. Now, for me, the reason I understood this is part of where my insight came from all this, is I'm a master meditator. Okay, so I was a monk for 9 years, celibate monk. I can meditate for 10 hours effortlessly. Most people can't sit still for 20 minutes. I gotta move. Well, I like to move too, but I can also develop this skill to forget my problems. That's what meditation is. That's what the Buddha taught. That's what prayer is. God's going to help me. I don't do it all myself. Just let it go. So but the meditation is literally to forget your problems. And suddenly we have a whole field of psychology that says, well, if you forget your problems, you're in denial. You're suppressing your feelings. That's a bad thing. You need to talk about your feelings. Yes, particularly for women, not for men. And then if a man still has big trauma, he needs to talk about it. But the normal traumas of life, you don't need to talk about. So when he comes home from work, she's going, how was your day? He wants to forget his day. He doesn't want to talk about his day. And a woman says, then we can't talk. I need to talk. I said, you can talk. He can forget about his day. Just don't ask him about his day. And then she says, well, they will never have conversation. I want conversation. And I understand that. But at the same time, there's places for conversation where you're just connecting together and you're not stressed. But if he's stressed, he doesn't need to talk. If you're stressed, you need to talk. He needs to learn how to listen. And those guys who don't talk are the best listeners. If you just say to them, you don't need to talk. You don't need to fix anything. Keep your mouth closed. I just want to talk and share about my day. And what you can do is look at me, make little noises. Okay, I get that. I hear you. I hear you. Or help me understand that better. Tell me more about that. This is ABCs of emotional intelligence applied to gender intelligence. Gender intelligence is the man needs to penetrate the woman. The woman doesn't need to penetrate the man. And women who think they have to get inside of him are really deep inside are wanting him to go into her, but she doesn't feel safe. So the idea of, when a guy's not talking, nothing's going on, she imagines, once again, he must be angry with me, because often if women are angry or mistrusting, they don't want to talk to you. So it's a little uncomfortable for her to just start talking about her day. It's actually kind of rude to do that on Venus. When two women get together, there was, how are your children and how's this and how's this? The one who wants to talk the most is going to ask the most questions right away. And then they feel like you owe me 5 minutes to hear what I have to say. But so if you ask a man a lot of questions, you're pulling teeth, when really you can say, oh, I'm so happy you're here. I just want to tell you about my day. And if it's good, tell them what's good. If it's not good, oh, I had a terrible day today. I just want to talk about it for a few minutes. And then when you talk about it, the key to this is you always shift in the middle of talking about it to positive things. Well, it's not all bad. I love my job and I'm so grateful for this and I get to do this. And I'm so happy to be married to you so I can tell you all this stuff because I feel closer to you. Otherwise, all day long, I'm in a different world. I like to have you with me. I want you to know what I'm doing, what I'm going through. And yes, I know that woman will also say to me, but I want to know what you're going through. That's the wrong direction. But here's the good news. When a man becomes a good listener and you actually begin to reveal more of your femininity, if he listens to you becoming more vulnerable, he actually becomes more vulnerable as well and begins to open up and talk more as well. So that will happen eventually, but not right away. You have to be the one first. You have to take that step first to become vulnerable. And he has to feel confident and successful in helping you deal with whatever's going on. And how does he help it? By not trying to fix you, but by just asking questions. So this is contrary to anything that's ever been taught on this planet. Okay, historically, we didn't have women complaining, my husband doesn't listen to me. It's in no literature at all. It doesn't exist. My mother would never complain, your father doesn't listen to me. She didn't care, nor did people care about romance. You know, often women would say, where are the romantic men I read about? Well, there's Don Juan, who's very romantic and will never commit. Okay, so let's put him out of the thing. Then you've got Romeo and Juliet. They had loved each other. I can't live without you. They got married and then they died. That's it. Their romance lasted for one day. So this is just youthfulness. This is hormones. This is newness stimulating the hormones. How do you sustain those hormones and have them grow over a lifetime? That's what we're talking about, which is understanding it all comes back down to biology. See, the whole hormones of making love is biology. Women need to, in order to be orgasmic or even experience a high level of love, extra love and sex, her estrogen levels have to go high. For her to have an orgasm, her estrogen levels have to double what they are when she's happy. Okay, I'm so happy to be with you. And now they have to double. So that takes a lot of stimulation to do that. For a man, his testosterone has to double or triple in your presence. That's the whole key. If a man can go online and do pornography, it will double or triple instantly because there's no estrogen being produced. So estrogen and testosterone are like a seesaw. If my estrogen goes really high, my testosterone is going to start going low. So as my estrogen goes high, I have to do something. I need something to keep my testosterone high. And that would be a woman loving me and appreciating me. Whenever a man feels loved and appreciated, his testosterone goes high. For a woman's estrogen to go high, particularly if she's wanting sex, now her testosterone's going up, her estrogen has to go higher to stay feminine. So he needs to be giving her reassuring gestures that she's loved and she's important and all that. Women are very verbal about this stuff. It's very, very important. Men don't understand that. You know, even to this day, I teach my classes because this idea of talking during sex. I'll say, men, imagine and you're making love and your wife says, do you love me? And you say, yes, I love you. And you're the only one for me. I'd marry you again 100 times. I love you so much. And I give men a lot of phrases to say. And these are heartfelt phrases. You don't say it if you don't feel it. Okay. But you can feel something and not be able to talk. Okay. So you have to be able to find the words to express the feeling. And I'll say that in the room. And I say, now, how many women would like hearing your husband say that during sex? And all the women, they go like this. And the men are like in shock. They're like, what? Have I been missing out on this my whole life? It's like a basic thing. It's called making love. It's making love. And then then you have a whole nother aspect of making love, which time. Making love takes time. There's just as a little advice for the men listening, they often, the more loving a man is, the more estrogen levels he has, the shorter the sex tends to be. Because when estrogen goes too high, his testosterone goes down and he loses it. Okay, he ejaculates. So it's over. So you'll see these guys who have no estrogen at all and way more testosterone. This typically the mesomorph body type when they're younger, at least. That means they have way more muscle mass. They will have less estrogen, so they will last longer in sex. If you have a man who just has so much love, you see, the more love you have, the higher estrogen levels, the lower your testosterone levels are in terms of statistics. Now, I have so much love, but my estrogen is very high, but my testosterone is 50% higher than I was young. Okay, so you can keep your testosterone up if you're a man, as your estrogen naturally goes up. For women, their testosterone naturally grows up as they get older. Some women get mustaches and they become more like men. That's because they haven't learned how to keep their estrogen higher. So it's about making choices in our life. So when it comes to sex, if a man wants a woman to get higher and higher into levels of orgasmic pleasure and feeling, is while you're making love, this is such a beautiful concept. Don't get lost in the pleasure. Don't do anything other than only a little to increase pleasure, meaning you're not trying to intensify, but it just feels so good. All right. You just stay with it. And you notice the pleasure feels so good. You use the pleasure only to feel more love and to express love. So pleasure is just a doorway to feel more love. Now, I'm a master of this. I can make love for hours, just like I can meditate for hours, but I could never do it with a woman I wasn't committed to or in love. Because for me to reach those high estrogen levels and maintain the testosterone to go on for hours, if one wanted to, is to have that commitment. See, commitment is very testosterone producing. This is, I will do it no matter what. I'm here. I stand for what I say. I keep my word. I keep my promise. My integrity is such. I tell the truth. All these kinds of things are testosterone producing. So if you're in a committed relationship and you're a man, you have the highest potential of the best lovemaking. This is because you can say, I love you more than anybody. I'll always be with you. I'm so happy I'm married to you. But you have to have good relationship skills outside the bedroom so that you're not holding resentments or any of those things. But what I've seen is that making love takes away a lot of the potential resentments outside the bedroom, as well as if you're doing the right things outside the bedroom, it allows us to get the higher levels of making love. So they are reciprocal, but we have to learn skills on both places. We just can't expect it to happen automatically. It doesn't happen automatically. We need new knowledge, new instruction, new guidance. Culture used to tell you what to do. Culture told women to take care of babies all day. You didn't have birth control. So if you had sex, you had babies. If you have babies, you produce huge amounts of estrogen, which makes you enjoy sex more, allows you to enjoy sex, want to have sex. And men, if they have a wife with estrogen, just women producing estrogen raises a man's testosterone. And a man had a job that wasn't easy. All men's jobs were not easy. They were difficult, dangerous, and nobody wanted to do them. So it was kind of like we separate out the two worlds. Women, do what you like to do, enjoy doing, that doesn't stress you out. That's what my mother had. She wanted to raise children. That was it. He, on the other hand, my dad went and did a job. And when a man works, he produces testosterone and he comes home and he reads the newspaper. It was so funny. He actually had the newspaper like this. It's his cave. It's always been there. If you go back, into some of the tribal places, you see the men are sitting by the fire with men, not with women. They're hanging out with the guys, but then they meet up at night. Okay. And if the women need anything, they're right there to solve the problem. So we have a culture now where everything has changed. So what we need is new guidance on how to fulfill what we're really wanting today, because as the culture changed, it gives freedom for women to go to their male side. If women go to their male side, now they have the power to ask for more. See, culture in the past never gave women permission to ask for more. You could look for more based on what you could get, but you don't ask men for more. There's no skills that women are taught how to ask for more. You would just, hey, this is my catch. I'll live with it. I'm content with it. I'm good with it. But when a woman goes to her male side, which they can do, they can use logic and strategy to get more. So what that means, if you're way on your male side, you now have the strategy to get more support. And we have a whole new culture that we haven't yet figured out. My books have figured it out, how women can ask for more and get it. See, in previous generations, if you want a marriage to last a long time, be content with what you have. There's no skills on how to ask for more other than a skill that doesn't work to get more: complaining. All complaints is asking for more, and it never works. It just will not work. It doesn't work. So you won't get more. And so you end up feeling more disappointment, more dissatisfaction. And then you see on internet and you see in the movies, you see these amazing romantic experiences. You feel it inside you in those moments in the movies. When I talk about it, people can go, yes, this is because it's very real for me. I've created this in my life. And you kind of go, well, they have it. Why can't I have it? I want more. But if you want more, you have to have the skills how to get more, as opposed to he should just do it all himself. No, romance is a two-way street. One example of this. I mean, there's so much information, but
well, this is good. People are going to want to know, well, complaining isn't the way. What's the way? And this is such a message of hope that you're offering us, that physical intimacy, like lovemaking, can just get better and better and better over time, and relationships can get better and better. And it's a good thing that we're learning to want more, and that we're aware of our needs, and we need strategies for how to do that in a way that really works and doesn't just create, more pain and disconnect. So yeah,
keep going. Summarized. Okay, you led me in the right direction. So now we're going to go into how. Okay, here now in Men from Mars, so the whole chapter on how to ask for more. In Beyond Mars and Venus is if a woman's way on her male side and a man tends to be more passive, more on his female side, which is always going to be the case in most cases, put it that way. If a woman is very active, making money on her male side, overwhelmed with work, coming home, kind of stressed, men are going to become passive. They're just going to add to your stress level. This is because you're on your male side that pushes him to his female side. When he goes to his female side, these are the negative qualities of a man when he goes to his female side and his testosterone isn't high. Irritability, passiveness, low energy, low motivation, anger. All those things happen when a man's testosterone is low. He doesn't have enough of his own time. And his time with her, if she's not happy, okay, if he doesn't feel I have the power to uplift my partner, you don't have to be happy all the time, but I have the power to uplift her. I'm doing a good job. If I'm in the presence of someone I'm intimate with and I feel I'm not doing a good job, my testosterone goes straight down. This is what happens in marriages. It's just, once you start having sex, all the problems start showing up because you don't know how to communicate what's going on inside of you in a way that uplifts a man. And a man doesn't know how to communicate to a woman in a way that makes her feel safe and at ease. So these are big, big lessons to accomplish. But you asked the question. So how to ask for more, very, very important skill. I'm only going to do I'm just going to give you an example, and it has 5 elements in it. Now, I've written it in a chapter in Men from Mars. I've written it in a chapter in the most recent book on relationships, which is Beyond Mars and Venus. It's a bit more extensive there because it's talking about the hormones and everything. But here's how to do it. So if you look at most relationships, the annoyance and irritations build up about little things. Okay. I asked you to do this and you didn't do it. I asked you to do this and you didn't, particularly from the woman's side. Then what she does, she complains you didn't do it. Women are addicted to complaining. That's another thing we see in an MRI scan. When you're complaining, it shows up like you're taking cocaine. This is just a bad habit. You're addicted to it, but you can't break a bad habit if you don't have what you're needing. What you need is, how can I communicate to my partner that I want more? So how do we do that? We'll get to that now. All right. A roundabout way we got there. Okay.
Oh, it's juicy stuff. It's so good.
It's juicy stuff. There's so much there. It's all in my book, Beyond Mars and Venus, by the way, way more. So I give an example and I'll explain why it worked. So one of these little things that builds over time is, my wife would say, you forgot to turn out the light. We have a big house. I walk through the house. I don't turn out all the lights to get from one side to another. So many light switches. Okay. But anyway, So she said, John, you forgot to turn out the light. Oh, I'll try to remember. That's my first reaction. And then it doesn't happen. Now, why doesn't it happen? Because I'm a big, I think big. Okay. I do big stuff. I don't think about little stuff. And she's worrying about money. She also pays the bills at our house. So good for her. She's thinking about that. We have a high electric bill. We got to cut this down, whatever. So, okay, I'll try. But I would forget. And this goes on for 10 times, 1 year, another year. It's not like all the time I forget, but she's going to notice when she's walking through, she sees the light on, she comes in. He didn't hear me. He didn't hear me. See, that's the source of stress. Now, in a woman's mind, I've asked him 50 times. If he doesn't do it, that means he doesn't love me. If he can't do one little thing that's important to me, that means he doesn't love me. So now she's going to react as if I have evidence my husband doesn't love me. But that same husband, which is not true, is there's no test of love because I remember to turn out a light switch. It just means I can't remember to turn out the light switch. It has nothing to do with her. It has to do with me, but she's taking it personally. Happens 10 times, maybe not such a big deal. Then it becomes a bigger deal. Then it becomes a bigger deal until it's completely irrational from one point of view. The first time I didn't turn out the light, it didn't upset you. So why should it upset you now? Well, because it's happened for years, it's going to upset you more. Because if you're a woman, you're going to measure. That means he doesn't love me. Because women are always looking for reassurance that they're loved. They're looking for reassurance. Why? Because women have greater fear. And why would they have greater fear? Because their lives are more vulnerable. We all know that women are more vulnerable. And so after years of this bothering her, she realized, I need a new strategy. So she poked her head in the kitchen one day when I'm eating a sandwich with a big smile on her face. And that was I'm drawn to her. She's a happy woman, basically happy until she's complaining. She has bad days, good days, right? Everybody does. So rather than complain, you forgot again, she opened the door and she said, John, I've noticed you've been turning the light out recently. And I just wanted to remind you, I love it. And sometimes you forget, it's not a big deal, and walked out of the room. The opposite of what women do. And I thought, oh, that was good. I am, because in my mind, I'm trying to, but obviously I don't do it always. And she notices that. She did it again. Oh, John, I just wanted, it was a few weeks later. She's, I just so happy. I noticed you've been turning out the light. I just like to remind you, it feels so good when you do that. And sometimes you forget, and it's not such a big deal, and walked out of the room 3 times. And to this day, she's passed 4 years. I still think about her when I turn those lights out. See, instead of punishing somebody with disapproval and rejection, it's awful, and judgment, you reward them for whatever you can. But you also notice that when you do that, it feels good. I like it. Just want to remind you, I just want to remind you, you still forget. No, she just want to remind me how good she feels. And it's not a big deal. See, we're ending up now, but it's $1 million phrase. If women can realize whenever you ask anything, it's not a big deal. I just would love it if you would do this, as opposed to, I would love it so much if you did this. That makes it a big deal. Or you still haven't done it. I'm not happy because of it. That makes it a big deal. Minimize, and men will give more importance to it. When you pump it up, men have to minimize down if they're logical, and you want your men to be logical. So instead of minimizing down, you minimize down a little bit. And then women will say to me, well, what if you had an affair? Well, that's a big deal. That's not a little thing. That's where you go to a therapist and you don't talk to him as much as you talk to the therapist till you start finding your own issues of insecurity and pain. And you have to process yourself. We didn't get into processing, but Christine, I'd love to come back and teach women how to process their emotions, because we did sort of go that direction, but we came back to another powerful one. Because if you're upset about anything, before you ask for more, you have to first come from a place of, I'm happy and I love you, and this would make me happier. It's just a tone of voice that says everything's good and this can make it better, as opposed to when you do that, we have a terrible relationship. So if we can sort of back up from that and see it as a principle, I'm responsible for my happiness. You're responsible for your happiness. My job, if we look at it like this playful way, my job is to make you happier. Your job is to be happy. My job is to be happy. I'm not dependent on you to make me happy. actually, I'm dependent on me to make me happier. And ironically, I'm happier by making you happier. See, this is the real, women are not happier by making a man happier. women depend on a man to make you happier, depend on yourself to be happy. So let's look at a practical example of that. When I teach women about men need their cave time. Well, what women need to bond to cope with stress. They like to talk, they like to spend time together and share. Well, he wants to be in his cave. Well, what am I supposed to do then? And I said, well, that's called having a life. when my daughter said that to my wife, Bonnie, in her marriage, she said, well, what am I supposed to do, Mom? He's in his cave. She said, that's why you have girlfriends. You have a life. You don't change him to fulfill you. You change you to fulfill you. And then you're in a receptive place to ask for more, and you'll get more. But if you're coming from a place of demand, that's a little different from complain. They're all similar. Demand is, I can't love you. I can't open my heart to you until you change. And when you do that, you make it very difficult for your partner to change. As opposed to, maybe the situation is, well, I can't open my heart to you till you change. You say to your partner, right now I'm working on myself. I'm sorry, I can't open up. I'd like you to do this, but if you can't, I need to work on myself. I'm in therapy, or I'm in coaching, or I'm doing my processes to work through my feelings so I can see my part of this and find understanding of how I contribute. That's very, very important. And come back to a place of love. And then I would really appreciate if you do this for me. So rather than even have that conversation, you just realize anytime you're demanding your partner to change before you can be happy, you relegated him have the job to make you happy rather than you. So if my daughter Lauren, when she's a little girl, sees other kids with ice cream and she doesn't get ice cream, she says, Daddy, I want ice cream. I said, we don't eat ice cream every day. Now she throws a tantrum. See, that's what a child does. Well, I don't get my ice cream. Well, you can get your ice cream, but not today. Well, that's not fair. They're getting it today. You see, we throw tantrums inside ourselves all the time. That's us. We have to be responsible to learn something called delayed gratification, and not being demanding, and not being a perfectionist, not expecting others to do beyond what they can do. And you find your love that allows you to fall in love with them in the first place. Love is a deep thing. There's a lot going on. We love someone. And yet in the beginning, we don't see their faults or their limitations or what they can't do. And then it's our challenge later, as they start showing up, to realize, well, I have a challenge here, which I'm demanding about that. I'm requiring him to change before I can be happy. And the joy of this is when you can come back to your happiness without suppressing your emotions. That's why you have to learn how to process emotions. Then what happens is you come back always to the person who fell in love. And I love this person, regardless whether they're perfect. That's this kind of unconditional love that we can find and grow in. Children can bring us into that faster, but we can also find it in our relationships, and even a more mature way, because a relationship is conditional. I mean, if you don't give me what I need, how can I feel my love for you? I can keep changing myself, whatever, but I need reciprocity. That's a reality. So that's not unconditional. But what I have is also the ability, when I'm not getting what I want, to come back to a place of opening my heart and reflecting on how I am contributing to this problem and what can I do to bring out the best in my partner. And maybe you tried everything you can and it doesn't work. Well, then you have a choice. You might need to move on. But what I've seen in every single person, any person ever spends a half an hour talking to me who has a big problem in a relationship, I can tell them 10 things they're not doing that would help, because they just don't know. And often women particularly feel I've been doing, well, men can do it somewhat, but I do so much for him and I don't get back. And I can point out, well, you're doing things that you would want, but not what he wants, not what he needs. And, what men will come back from is like, no matter what I do, she's never happy. Okay, that's their thing, is they think I make all this money, I do this. And I said, well, that's not going to make a woman happy today. That's part of making her happy. But you're making her unhappy too much of the time. What do you mean? I said, just when you say to her, why are you so unhappy? You should know why she's unhappy. Well, she's gotten no hugs. She's got no compliments. She's got no romance. She never feels heard. She feels you minimize her. You interrupt her. You get pouty. You're not the man you used to be. Of course, she doesn't feel loved. And then make her, oh, I didn't know all that. Help me understand that better. They're doing is too much of what doesn't work and not enough of what does work. Anyway, so such a lovely time, Christine.
Oh, you've given us so many gems and insights and things to reflect on and to have conversations, really meaningful conversations with their partner. So last thing I want to ask you, so this is the Thriving Relationship Show, and you've shared so much about what a thriving relationship is. And in a nutshell, what would you say your definition of a thriving relationship is?
Two people coming together, support them in their growth of love.
Oh, two people coming together to support kind of one another in their growth of love.
Okay, it's just being with my partner makes me feel more loving, and my presence to my partner makes them feel more loving. And in the category of loving, it's a big word. Think about love as like ice cream, lots of flavors. There's never just one kind of love. There's appreciation, there's trust, there's acceptance, there's forgiveness, there's excitement, enthusiasm, there's respect. Respect is a very important aspect of love. Admiration, devotion, validation. So these are all feelings of love. So it's a big thing. And so what our partners can do is challenge us to be our best person. You have to be challenged to grow in some way. If everything's easy, everything stays the same. If we want to grow in our ability to love, we have to be challenged. So why not be challenged by somebody who starts out loving you? You look for quite a while to find somebody you want to be challenged by, which means that you can always come back to, when you come back to letting go of your own resistance to love, the truth is this is a person who really loves you or can love you. And that may not always be the case, but most of the time it is, because you looked for a while, you found the right person. And that's a whole nother talk on how to know if they're the right person, but that not for today.
Oh, I know. We could just keep going.
I know. Listen, look at you. You're just sponging up whatever I say. Okay, so that I have more and more and more. You're like the perfect example of how to bring the best out of your partner. Because whenever, particularly a man, when you bring out more of a man is to appreciate what he has to say or what he does, he will just pull out more. And so you're so feminine in that way. I can't stop providing more for you. So that's a good example for people. You're sitting there smiling at everything, saying, "Oh, this is so good. This is so good." My gosh, if we could just all learn how to bring out the best of our partners, which I also have a course for that at marsvenus.com.
Yes, thank you so much. And I just like felt my heart just expand hearing you talk about how relationships are where we can grow all of the kind of the best of what it means to be human. So, but where can they find out more? You have, oh my goodness, a library of resources. And so where can they find you? Social media, website, tell us all the things.
Well, the main thing is marsvenus.com. It's a good starting place, and there's a free class right away. And if you take that free class, you'll get a reminder that we have another class that you can purchase called Understanding Men. It's a 4-week course. My daughter teaches it for women only. I think couples should watch it together, but it's directed for women. And it's actually easier for men to hear if the course isn't directed at changing him, but it's all directed at helping women, not so much change, but to understand men better. And indirectly, men understand themselves better, because so many things I say to men, they kind of go, "Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, I never thought of it that way." But it's true. So that is available at marsvenus.com. But get a taste of our work together. It's just by taking the free class. But I really want to encourage people to understand men better. I think we have the best course in the world, a 4-week course that will help. One of the modules in it is the problem that solves all problems. And that's men going to their cave. To look at that thing, which is usually a big problem, is actually the solution to all the problems when you understand it. It's such an important idea for women to really, really get and not take it personally. And I want to now teach that class, but that's another, so we can't go on, but it's just let people know that that's available to them. It's so nice.
So good. You have been just incredibly generous with sharing your wisdom and insights and love and a heart with us. So everyone be sure to go visit. We'll put that in the episode notes below. So you can just click on that link, and that sounds like a wonderful place for people to start. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And this just feels like, how do we open up that pathway between human hearts, so we can all love and support each other in the way that we all long for, truly in service of the greater good of all. So blessings to you, John. Thank you for your incredible contribution to the world, and everyone for growing love here together. I'm so grateful and can't wait to see you all next time. Want more support for your relationship? I warmly welcome you to head on over to centerthrive.com to learn more about our couples counseling and coaching, our online courses, our weekend retreat, as well as our Thriving Relationship Coach Certification Training. And we have a whole bunch of free resources to help you thrive in your love. Thank you so much for being here, and wishing you an abundance of love and blessings.